Hey friends, today I'm doing an extreme budget challenge with lots of whole foods and fresh vegetables. And just a disclaimer, I will be using basic pantry staples. A recent viewer commented that I could do my budget challenges so much cheaper if I bought my ingredients in bulk, which obviously I do agree and encourage people to buy in bulk whenever possible. So in this video, I'm going to be pricing my staple items from the bulk pricing, and then we'll see if it makes much of a difference. I have a delicious and ambitious menu planned for my tiny budget, and I will tell you in advance, I did discover a game changer for budget cooking. My goal will be to get at least 21 meals out of this menu and hopefully much more. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into my grocery haul. To start out with, I'll be using some flour from my own pantry, and I do buy this in smaller quantities, but the going rate for bulk flour is about 34 cents a pound. So that's what I'm going to add into the budget. And I'm going to use a pound of the basmati rice that I just purchased. I think I showed you guys that last week. And I'm not sure if that's going to be enough rice, but we'll see at the end of the week. And then I'm going to use a pound of chickpeas. I've got some fun things that I'm actually going to be trying with those that I'm kind of excited about. And these are currently running about 96 cents a pound in bulk at Azure Standard, which is about what I can get them for in my area. And then I've got half a pound of green lentils, and then I've got half a pound of red lentils. And those are about the same cost for me. I buy those in bulk quantity at Wholesome Choice. However, you can get the smaller amounts and still get a great deal there. As far as lentils go, you really need to know where to shop to get those. Azure Standard was $1.52 a pound for a 25-pound bag. So I'm definitely getting them less expensive. And I just could not help myself. Eggs did come down a little bit. These were $2.56 for 6, which is about a dollar drop from where they were. And I know that some of my viewers have been mentioning that they're much less expensive in their area. So I checked the Midwest, which is typically the least expensive for eggs, and their 6-packs were $1.58, so about a dollar cheaper. And in case you missed it, that pricing was in Oklahoma City. I'm going to use these to incorporate my breakfast. Obviously, if you want to go cheaper, you can just do bulk oatmeal. It's only about 9 cents per serving at Sam's Club. I got these hot dog buns because I've been thinking about those plant-based hot dogs that I got at IKEA, and I was thinking about using these red lentils to make some of those. Those were some of the most delicious hot dogs I've ever eaten. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it or not, but I'm going to give it a try. But if I succeed, it'll be a high fiber, high protein, inexpensive lunch option for us. And if I fail, I do have a delicious backup option. And then I grabbed this California vegetable mix. This actually can be used in many different ways. I'm thinking about maybe wanting to try a curry, but a curry kind of like something I haven't tried before. Although I could use those with some empanadas, or I could use the pack of vegetables to make 2 servings of a vegetable soup with dumplings. I did that in a recent video and it was delicious. I'll link that video for you. And then I got this mixed vegetables. I was thinking with the basmati rice that I could try a fried rice, but there's a unique fried rice that I want to try. It's a Filipino garlic fried rice, which are 2 of my favorite ingredients combined in one dish, so I'm sure I'm gonna love it. And then I grabbed this tomato paste because this is actually from my pantry and it is a pantry staple for most people. So I'm only going to be using about 2 tablespoons of that, I think. And then I grabbed this red onion. I did pay more for the red onion. I could have gotten just a regular brown or yellow onion, much cheaper. However, I really wanted to pickle these and I thought that they would be delicious in some bowls that I'm going to make. And then I have 3 carrots that I'll be using, and carrots are probably one of the only vegetables that I actually do buy in bulk. They are so much less expensive. I eat these a lot, almost every day, and so I buy these at Sam's Club. Okay, if you're on a super tight budget, I would stop right there. You can use all of these ingredients to make wonderful meals this week, and I'm going to show you how. I would probably go ahead and swap out the oatmeal for the eggs and make it even less expensive, and then you're probably going to be around $1.30 a day. However, you know how extra I am with the fresh ingredients, so I'm going to add some onto this menu just to make things a little bit more fun and fresh. There was a great deal on the cilantro and onions. They were 3 for $1. I can also do some fun stuff with the flour if I have time with the green onions. And then I've got 1 jalapeno. Those are always super cheap. I think mine was 11 cents. And I picked up some tomatoes, which were oddly less expensive at Walmart this week. And I got 1 zucchini. And I spent a lot of money on this red pepper. I know it was probably a mistake, but I just really like red pepper in the summer, so I went ahead and purchased it. And then I got a ton of these little Persian cucumbers. If you've never had these before, these are slightly sweeter than a regular cucumber. They have a lower water content, and so these are very comparable to like an English cucumber, however, a lot less expensive in my area. These were 79 cents a pound, so I took advantage of it, and I thought I could make a cold salad with these. These would also be great in many different applications. I could make like a basic tomato, onion, and cucumber salad, or I could make the Chinese crushed cucumber. That is so refreshing. Or I could try to recreate the cucumber dish that I had at Din Tai Fung. I got this tiny knob of ginger, and it's so small that I think they forgot to charge me for it. I wasn't able to find that anywhere on my receipt. And then I got some okra just because I know how inexpensive it is just to grab 5 or 6 of these. And I have a coworker at work. I think she's from Pakistan. I'm not sure exactly, but she's been making a rice and okra dish for her lunch that looks so delicious. I've been thinking about trying that. And I've got 2 cloves of garlic. So this is my haul. There are so many things that I can make with just these ingredients, and I think I'm going to get a lot more than 21 meals out of this. The prices came in at $13.62, and that was pricing, you know, all of the bulk items from bulk costs. But I am going to add $1 into this to make it $14.62 because I did use quite a bit of oil this week with the different recipes. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cook until I have none of these ingredients left, and we'll see how many meals I'm able to get. And the first thing I'm going to do is put my cilantro in water. Sometimes the cilantro is not that fresh, and so it will wilt quite quickly. Maybe that's one of the reasons it's so inexpensive. But I'm just going to put this in water and set this in the fridge. And then what I'm going to do is put about half of this red onion into some pickling brine, just because I do know that I want to make some bowls, and so I think that some pickled onions would be a great addition to that. And I am going to be saving all of these scraps for a vegetable broth. So I'll just put all of my scraps into this, and then I'll boil these later in the week. I always try to put all of my veggies from my haul in one container and then put them somewhere in the fridge so that I can easily find them. Okay, now I'm going to pickle some of my vegetables, and you guys have seen me do this already, so I'm just going to quickly go through this. You can screenshot the screen right here, but it's 2 cups water, 2 cups white vinegar, a 1/3 cup sugar, and 1 teaspoon salt. And then of course you can always adjust the amount of sugar to your taste if you want a little bit more. And I actually did run out of my white vinegar, so I added just a little extra of the apple cider vinegar, and you just heat that up and it dissolves and you're ready to go. I tasted mine here because I had to add a little bit more of the vinegar, and I wanted to even it out with just a touch more sugar. But get that to your liking, and then I'm going to let that cool and then put my vegetables into jars. In this case, it's the sliced red onions. And I also decided to do some pickled zucchini, just because I think I'm going to do some wraps later, and I think that this would be good. And I have plenty of these Persian cucumbers. I made some of these slices thin and then some a little thicker, just in case I need those for like a relish or something like that. And I have no idea why I made a full batch of this, but if I were you, I would cut this recipe into a third because that's really all I would have needed to make. And then you could save your vinegar. Okay, next up I'm making carrot bread. It's like carrot cake, but it's in a quick bread version of this. And I remember doing, I think it was the $5 a week extreme budget, and I made one of the little carrot muffins, and it was so delicious. And I really just threw together some flour and salt and baking soda, and it was just the easiest thing ever. So I thought I would make this. Sometimes I make other kinds of quick breads. They're really a good go-to recipe for budget cooking just because they're so inexpensive, so easy to make, and they really help fill a need in terms of filling in for breakfast. So that's what I'm using it for this week. And here are all of the ingredients. I'm going to try to put this recipe for you in the description area of my video. I only have so much space there, so I'm not sure I can put all of the recipes, but I'll definitely put that one. I have 3 carrots in my haul. I'm only going to use 2 for this bread, and then I'm going to use the other one for something else. And also I'm keeping the ends for my broth that I'm going to make later. And I am going to go ahead and peel these, and I'll save the peels for my broth. I probably didn't need to do this, but I just wanted to, so I am. And another thing is, I was like, should I use 1 egg or 2 eggs? I know in my banana bread, I can get away with only 1 egg, and it makes a perfect loaf. But in this one, I don't have the gooey bananas, and I definitely don't want it to fall apart. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and put 2 eggs. I mean, ideally, I would have been able to get 12 eggs, and then there would be plenty for breakfast. But I am conserving the eggs. There's lots of things I can do with those. I could make batters for vegetables. I could make an egg salad sandwich with this carrot bread. I can make fried eggs. I can make poached eggs. But mostly, I just want to conserve those for breakfast. And I'm going to be making some savory breakfasts that include the eggs, along with some rice dishes. But this carrot bread is just going to be great because, first of all, it's great for snacks as well. I felt bad because my son asked me this morning to make him some banana bread. And when I mentioned that I was making carrot bread, he didn't seem too enthused about that. But I think that that's because he's not thinking carrot cake, which is kind of more similar to what this will be like. One of the differences too in these recipes is how much sugar to put in. I always put a half cup of sugar in my banana bread. Lots of people use a lot more. And look at these eggs. These eggs are sticking to this container. 2 of these eggs were sticking, and I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. I would be so upset if 2 of these eggs were not usable because they were sticking. Well, I did manage to dig this out. Unfortunately, it does have a crack in it, but I'm sure it'll be fine. And I have more mismatched chopsticks. I think I'm gonna order some pink chopsticks just to mess with my sons. Just to see if they'll use them. They probably will, actually. Anyhow, so what I was talking about with the sugar is that for me, I don't like a real sweet bread. So I usually go with half a cup, and it's usually fine with the banana bread. And I think I used a half cup with my zucchini bread and also that cranberry loaf that I made. And I am using vanilla If you don't have vanilla, then just skip it. I've made quick breads plenty of times and left out the vanilla and it tasted just fine. This does have a lot of oil in it, so if you have some applesauce, you could just use that instead. It's still going to give it some great moisture, and then you won't use as much of the oil. And again, I'll put this recipe for you in the description area. And then I'm just going to add in my dry ingredients to my wet ingredients. If you have some nuts, then go ahead and add those in. They'll be delicious here. And I'm using this rice paddle, and it actually made this quite easy. And then you're just going to add in the rest of the flour a little bit at a time, and this is going to be a very thick batter. You could also add some raisins into this mix if you wanted. I like to use parchment paper to keep it from sticking. However, if you use it all over, it can interfere with the shape of the loaf. I think this was zucchini bread that I made, and you can see how uneven it is around the corner. It just wasn't a beautiful loaf, and you know how I like my food to be beautiful. So I'm just using the parchment paper on the bottom this time, and I'm going to go ahead and oil and flour the sides because I don't want the sides to stick either. And then I'll just use the little piece of parchment paper on the bottom. And this already smells delicious, and it hasn't even started cooking yet. I think this is going to be really delicious, actually. It is quite thick, so I will need to spread this out evenly so I have a beautiful loaf. I want it to be as even as possible. And I did preheat my oven already. It's at 350 degrees, so I'm going to cook this for 55 minutes. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and cook all of these chickpeas. At first, I thought I would just make half, but then I decided I'm always short on time, so I'll just make all of the chickpeas and then I'll freeze half of them. These chickpeas are playing a pivotal role in this week's menu. I'm going to make several delicious meals with these, but also I'm going to use the aquafaba to try to make my own mayo. And I've never done that before, so I'm really looking forward to this. And I'm a little apprehensive because I don't know how it's going to turn out, but if it does work, it could be a game changer for budget cooking. You probably noticed, but I didn't salt these at all. I actually am fine with my chickpeas without any kind of salt. Lentils are the same for me. I don't add salt. Really, the only thing that I like to add salt to is pinto beans. But I'm thinking that most of you would probably prefer to salt these. Okay, it's actually late in the evening and this bean broth is still hot. So I'm going to let it cool overnight, and then tomorrow I'm going to try making my mayo. I'm putting the 2 bags of chickpeas in the freezer, and then I'm going to use the fresh chickpeas for a recipe. It's the next day and I woke up bright and early. I almost couldn't sleep. I was so excited to try this. I've got oil, I've got my aquafaba, got some salt, and then I have this Tostitos jar. It's about the only thing I have left in my cabinet that I can fit my immersion blender into. And let me just say that I'm choosing to make vegan mayo with these ingredients. You can also make regular mayo, but it is going to cost you at least 1 egg. So I'll leave both recipes for you in the description area. And I was looking at some real mayo just to see what is in there. And the first ingredient is soybean oil, which is interesting because I've heard that the vegan mayo works best with soy milk. And I guess soy has an emulsifier in it. So it's interesting that they use the soybean oil. But I am trying the aquafaba juice because I really like that idea. And also, if you didn't realize this before, mayo is mostly just oil and an egg or two. So it doesn't really have a lot of flavor. What flavor is there comes from vinegar or lemon juice and salt and sugar. The regular mayo had a little bit of lemon juice, some salt, and a little bit of sugar. I looked up a lot of different recipes online and kind of got a feel for some ratios of vinegar. And then some people like to add in some mustard powder or a wet mustard. The thing about it is that Mustard is also an emulsifier. My biggest concern was that this wouldn't get thick enough, but by the time I had added all of the oil in, it really started to thicken up, and I could tell it was going to be exactly where I wanted it to be. And I actually wanted it to be a little looser than regular mayonnaise because I was planning to put it in a squeeze bottle to squeeze it out onto some of my bowls for later in the week. I'll put the recipe for this in the description area of my video. I started with 1.5 teaspoons of vinegar, but then I went back and added another half. So it's a total of 2 teaspoons of vinegar and then 1 teaspoon of ground mustard. But the ground mustard is completely optional. In fact, I think most recipes don't call for that, but I went ahead and used it. And then I'm using about 1/4 of a teaspoon of garlic powder. That is completely optional also. Most mayos don't have that. I do love garlic and I know what recipes I want to use this in, so I thought it would be a great addition. And I'm not adding any sugar at all into mine. This looks perfect. I'm actually shocked, first of all, that it turns out white. The fact that you can beat oil and it becomes white is just crazy. And there is a chemical reason for that, but I won't bore you with the details. It looks just like mayo. It tastes like mayo. And when I was planning my menu, I was thinking about making the mayo and then maybe like making like a chipotle mayo, but you could also do like a ranch mayo or even a cilantro mayo. That would be actually making the best use of our grocery haul, is to give a nice fresh flavor, maybe to some bowls that I'm going to make later in the week. Okay, now let's get back to my carrot cake bread. I cooked this in a 350-degree oven for 55 minutes until a toothpick came out clear. And I actually didn't have any toothpicks, so I just used this and it was fine. And actually, I forgot to even check this before the 55 minutes were up, but as it turned out, it was perfect. I'm going to get a lot of mileage out of this loaf this week. And I should be able to get about 8 slices, but I'm going to go ahead and try this first because it smells amazing and it is nice and hot. And I like mine just plain, but obviously you can butter it if you want. I like it both ways actually, but I'm just going to eat it this way at the moment. And it is moist. One of the nice things about all of that oil is it really makes it very moist. Generally, if you want to use your quick bread in a sandwich, then I would suggest using a little bit less sugar, but I think I hit the right note with the amount of sugar that I used in this. So I do believe I'm going to get exactly 8 left after eating that end. So 7 big slices and then 2 small ends. In one of my other videos, I sliced the zucchini bread thin and I used it to make an egg salad sandwich. And since we did make mayo, you could obviously do the same thing here with the carrot bread. I remember that being surprisingly delicious. And sometimes if you're trying to conserve eggs, you can hard boil them and then slice them like this and serve them like an open-faced sandwich. And I think that's a little hot sauce in there. I usually do like to add some hot sauce to mine. But anyway, you have lots of options with this menu. I am currently going to be saving my eggs because I've got some other savory dishes that I want to use them for. I'm doing a lot in this video to get all of my food prepared so that my meals will be super easy and quick. So I'm cooking 2 cups of this rice now. I've already washed and rinsed my rice, and I'm going to cook this and then I'm just going to freeze it. And this is the basmati rice. And I know I said that jasmine was my favorite, but I think we're in a basmati phase. The texture is always so light and airy. You know, there's nothing I like more than rice when it's freshly done. Just to have a quick bite. I mean, just even with a little bit of soy sauce, that's it. And it's just so delicious. But I'm putting a little sesame oil and soy sauce. Next up, I'm making chickpea salad. And for me, a really good chickpea salad means it has a lot of crispy, delicious vegetables. And we definitely do have those with this haul. So I'm going to be using my red pepper, and you notice I'm saving quite a bit of that. I've got red onions, I've got the green onions, and I also cut up some cilantro and these cucumbers. And sometimes I use an oil and vinegar dressing, but this time I wanted to use my vegan mayo. It's going to make it lighter tasting, and I think it's just going to be really delicious. And I want to try this mayo with a piece of the cucumber, and yeah, that's delicious. I do want to add some more red wine vinegar to it for the chickpea salad, but I'm going to add that in separately into the bowl. And this is going to make 2 large servings, which I'll probably eat right away, so it'll be fine in the fridge. And I almost always make a little tester bowl before I actually pour all of my ingredients into the big bowl, just because of a couple things. First of all, I want to see how strong these red onions are, and also I want to taste the mayo mixture on there, just to make sure I want to do that. Sometimes I just use oil and vinegar, but if you add red onions in and they're too strong, for me it can just ruin the whole dish. But the vinegar should help mitigate that, or you can soak them in water, or maybe I don't need to do anything at all. But I tasted this and it was delicious. The red onions are actually fairly mild, so I feel comfortable just throwing all of those in there like that. And I think this is going to be quite nice. Sometimes you just really want the creaminess of the mayo instead of the oil and vinegar. It's lighter. I added just a touch more mayo, and since there isn't any salt in here at all, I went ahead and added just a bit and some pepper as well. And guys, this is fabulous. I did want to add a little bit more acidity to it, so I added a little more red wine vinegar. And you know, you could use any vinegar. White wine vinegar would be fine. I'm sure you could even use a balsamic, but it'd be best, I think, if you used a white balsamic. And you know, I could have even used some of my pickled onions in here, but I think that this is a great mix just as it is, and I'm saving those pickled onions for something else. In my opinion, chickpea salad is best when you have all of these crunchy vegetables along with it. I don't want to take a bite and get a bunch of chickpeas in my mouth. I want that balance of ingredients, and this is exactly what that was. It was perfect and refreshing and delicious. I feel like we're just getting started with the meals, but unfortunately, we're out of time this week. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button so you know when I release next week's video. Thanks so much for watching, friends. I'll see you Sunday.
Morning has broken, my windows are open. Wanna feel the wind blow through my hair. Which way do I follow? What happens tomorrow? I turn to you and hope you can guide the way. Sometimes I give up, just wanna be